नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली रब्बि यस्सिर व ला तुअस्सिर वतम्मिम बिल खैर आमीन या रब्बल आलमीन. First of all, recap. We discussed last time that a meaningful word in Arabic is called kalima. Kalima is of three types: ism, fi'l, and harf. So these are called parts of speech. Arabic terminology is aqsamul kalima. It is important really to become familiar with the Arabic terminology as we go along. We discussed last time that for correct use of a noun in a sentence, we will have to be familiar with four characteristics of a noun. Otherwise, we will make mistakes when making sentences and phrases. So what are those four characteristics of a noun, four attributes of a noun, four aspects of a noun? We learned that they're called i'rab, jins, adad, and wus'a. From the i'rab point of view, a noun is categorized into three categories, and those categories are, for example, if we look at a word, translation of boy into into Arabic, so we can write three forms: waladun, waladan, waladin. So this change we discussed, that the change which is occurring here in the terminal part of the noun is called inflection. In English we call it inflection. This inflection, which basically means change, this inflection, when it is applied to a noun, it's called declension. And when it is applied to a verb, it's called conjugation. So the Arabic terminology is declension, we will translate that as i'rab, and conjugation will be tasrif. Tasrif. When we go to Middle East, for example, Dubai, and we want to exchange our money, we go to money changer. So we look for a sign of money changer, and alongside we will see, and when you go next time you will see written sarraf. So sarraf is from tasrif. Sarraf is somebody who changes, makes changes constantly and excessively. So one currency to another currency to another currency, etc., etc. So this kind of pattern, there are patterns in Arabic, which this pattern is that of fa'al. We will study that in a separate lecture. Fa'al. So sarraf, it's called expression of mubaligha, excessiveness of something, and something which is done repeatedly and excessively. So this is basically, basic word is sarf. From that we have words tasrif and sarraf. In fact, many Arabic teachers start off with sarf, something called sarf, and then they move on to something called nahw. So these are two sciences of Arabic grammar, sarf and nahw. Sarf and nahw. So the science of sarf is about learning how the words change from one form or one appearance to another appearance, or from one shape to another shape, as we have seen in the case of walad, waladun, waladan, waladin. So this change is called the science of sarf, and it becomes really prominent when we study verbs. So for example, in English we have, if we look at pronouns and we start from third person, so we will say he, they, she, they, and then you, and then I, we. So these are about 3, 4, 5, 6 forms. In Arabic we will have 14 forms. They're very easy to memorize and very easy to remember. They're not difficult at all. And when we start reading about studying verb, we will go through these aspects of the changes which occur in verbs. The science of nahw is learning how to put words together. So how to put words together in a sentence to fit in a specific scenario, just like putting various pieces of jigsaw, for example, putting words together in a specific format. For example, when we looked at a couple of examples, the first example which we looked at was Hamid gave Zaid a book, and we said that in Arabic we can translate that in 9 different formats. Another sentence of English, Hamid helped Zaid, we can translate that into English in 6 different formats. So nahw is actually a very interesting word which basically means direction. This is one of the meanings of word nahw, direction, and there is a history behind it. Arabs, by which I mean ancient Arabs, they didn't need the help of grammar to understand Arabic writings and Quran. So the need of Arabic grammar arose when non-Arabs started accepting Islam and started entering in the circle of Islam. In the era of Hazrat Ali ibn Talib, a man from a far-off rural area joined a Salah congregation in an urban area. The person who was leading Salah was reciting Surah Tawbah. Soon the villager broke from the congregation and performed his own Salah individually. When asked why did he do so, he pointed out the mistake in recitation. And that was actually the first error of I'rab which was noted. And the error occurred in part of ayah number 3, which is very famous ayah, and it says, أن الله بريء من المشركين ورسوله. Translation which is commonly given in different books says that Allah is free from any obligation, any commitment to the pagans, idolaters, those who associate others with Allah, and so is his messenger, and his prophet also dissociates himself from the pagans. So that's what basically it means. The person who was reciting during Salah, he ended up saying by mistake وَرَسُولِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. So he changed this Dhamma to Kasra, and that changed the meanings completely, which basically means that Allah is free from any commitment, any obligation from mushrikeen and from his messenger, which if one says intentionally, immediately becomes out of the circle of Islam. So that was the first I'rab mistake which happened, and when the news reached to Hazrat Ali, he was shocked. Such a grave mistake. Alarm bells started ringing with the thought of similar other mistakes might be taking place. So he decided to preserve the language. So he pondered over the language and concluded that there are three kinds of words in Arabic: ism, fail and harf. So he commissioned the services of one of his associates, a scholar called Abul Asad ad-Duli, and said to him, Unhu hazan nah. Take this direction, kind of this general direction, or saying really take it from here or follow on from here, that kind of meaning. So that's how this science of Nahav came into existence. The mistake happened. The good thing which came out of that was that that mistake helped to preserve the language, and the first these haraka which were put in Quran were related to Arab only, not that, but only that bit. So the last bit in these words, and later on others were added as well. Let us move on to our today's topic, which is the topic of jinns. We have already said that for correct use of a noun in a sentence or a phrase, we will have to be familiar with 4 characteristics of a noun. And of those 4 characteristics, we have to some extent looked at the attribute of Arab. And the next one we can start looking at jinns. Gender. From the gender point of view, a noun is either masculine or feminine. There is no neutral gender in Arabic. So masculine, we can say, for example, father, brother. On the feminine side, mother, sister. Up to here, for an English speaking person, and there is no problem at all, because this is basically really about the sex of an individual, male or female. Concept of the sex is only applicable to living creatures, humans and others. But in Arabic, non-living things also have gender, which is more appropriately called grammatical gender. For example, things such as table, chair, pen, etc., they will all have a grammatical gender. So we can look at in English, really it doesn't matter, so I can't give you an example from English, but I have looked at a couple of Spanish words. For example, in Spanish, bedroom is called let me write it properly, I think we can call it el dormitoria, bedroom. So that's masculine. And another word, la, it's called Billy. It's called La Biblioteca, which means library. So if we look carefully here, masculine word is prefixed with this L, E-L, and feminine is prefixed with L-A, la. So this is basically marker of femininity in Spanish, and this is taken as a marker of masculinity. So similarly in Urdu, for example, we say kamra, which is room, and we will say my room, mera kamra. And if we say kursi, which is chair, and we will say meri kursi. So the change is occurring here to indicate gender. Here mera and meri. So this is a marker of femininity, and here that will be marker of masculinity. So in Urdu, this classification is not really as comprehensive as in Arabic. So we will see later on that in Arabic every noun will have a gender, and the gender will be either masculine or feminine. In Arabic we call this masculine as muzakkar, and this is called muannas. Muzakkar and muannas. Now in Arabic the default gender is masculine, which means that every noun will be considered masculine unless we prove that to be feminine. So we will only have to study feminine. Any noun which is not feminine will be automatically a masculine noun. So our scholars have made our job easy. They have put feminine nouns in different groups. Just as in Spanish there are certain markers of femininity in Arabic. So if I make a chart here, let's say muannas, put muannas here, and we can say that muannas is initially of two types, two categories. We can say biological and non-biological. Arabic terminology will be hakiki muannas, and muannas ghairu hakiki. Which basically means real muannas and the one which is not real, kind of translation. So biological, non-biological. Biological is easy because it is based on the sex of an individual, and it will be easy to see whether a noun is feminine as long as we know the meaning of that noun. For example, ummun, mother, ukhtun, sister, bintun, daughter. So as long as we know the meaning of these words, we will immediately know that they are feminine. On the non-biological side, they have decided them into two again: those which have markers of femininity and others which are based on hearing, as heard from people around us, from those who speak the language, as heard. Markers of femininity that are called alamati muannas. Alamat means marker, so alamati muannas, and this will be called muannas sama'i, based on sama'at, hearing. Muannas sama'i. So this is the kind of chart which we can make: biological, non-biological, and in non-biological we have markers of femininity and the other nouns which we heard from those who speak the language. So markers of femininity, there are three. Three of them. The first one, those nouns which end with ta, is called in Arabic ta marbuta, which basically means tied up ta. Ta marbuta. Kind of tied up tha. Rabata yarbatu means connection, making connection, so one end connects to the other end, and it's called ta marbuta. The other ta which is open is called ta maftuha. Fataha yaftahu means to open. Or ta mabsuta is another word which means spread out ta. So if you really want to become familiar with the terminology, so the opposite will be ta ta'u maftuha, or it's called ta mabsuta. So the words which end with ta marbuta, the tied up ta, they are considered feminine. For example, jannatun, garden. Ayatun, Quranic ayah. Mirwahatun, that's electric fan. Sa'atun, watch, wristwatch, or other watch. Another one, ghurfatun, room. Ghurfatun nomi is called bedroom. So ghurfatun, room. So these are all ending with the tied up tha, and that's the one marker of femininity. Other marker of femininity is something called, the last word will have fatha, and then after that will be alif and hamza. There's a name for this which is called alif mamduda. Oops. Mamduda means elongated alif, long alif, alif mamduda. And examples in this category are such as Sahara, Khadra, Sauda, Safra, so Sahara-u, Khadra-u, Sauda-u, Safra-u, a few of the examples. In Surah Baqarah, when Prophet Moses asked his people, his nation, that Inna Allaha ya'murukum an tazbahu Baqarah, Allah has asked you, or Allah has ordered you to slaughter a cow, and they started asking questions, what kind and what type and what color, etc., and they started digging for themselves. And then when they asked about the color, and it was said, innahu yaqulu innaha bakaratun safra'u, bakaratun safra'u faqi'ul lawnuha tasurrun nazirin, bakaratun safra'u. Bakaratun safra. So these are the words. So basically that is noun and that is adjective from the English point of view. And in Arabic we call this is mawsuf and this is sifa. We will study later on, it will be a separate topic, that sifa will have to follow mawsuf from all the four aspects of a noun. So if mawsuf is masculine, sifa will be masculine. If mawsuf is feminine, sifa will be feminine. So all these colors, they are feminine, and the opposite of masculine words, we are familiar with some of them. For example, we say Hajr Aswad, which is a Persian construction. Hajr Aswad. Hajr Aswad in Persian construction, but in Arabic we will say Hajru Aswad, not Hajri Aswad, Hajru Aswad. So Aswadu is masculine, which means black. So this means black stone. So because stone is masculine, so its sifa has to be masculine. And the feminine is Sauda'u. Here the mawsuf is feminine, so its sifa has to be feminine, Safra'u, and the masculine will be Asfaru. Asfaru, just like Aswadu. So that's masculine and this is feminine. So Sahara, Khadra, Sauda, Safra. This is Khadra. In Persian construction we usually say Gumbade. We don't actually say Gumbade Khadra, we say Gumbade Khidra, but Khidra is not the word, Khadra. So if we have to use Persian constructions, we'll say Gumbade Khadra, not Gumbade Khidra. So these are 2, and number 3 we can wipe some of that. You can still see there. So those nouns which end with this marker, there is long alif and then ya. This is basically long fatha and then ya. So this is called alif maksura. It's a kind of alif rather than fatha. Alif maksura. Mamduda was elongated, long, tall. Alif maksura is short. This is kind of short alif maksura. Alif maksura. So they end in alif maksura. The examples will be for example kubra, sugra, zikra. These are just the names. Zikra, remembrance. Taqwa, piety, fear of God. So three markers of femininity. Apologies that this is a kind of nerdy, dry stuff, but it's really important because this is part of our foundation, and without strong foundation our building is not going to stand a chance at all. So we are going to build on this foundation, so the foundation really will have to be strong. So if you go through these again at some stage and kind of try to memorize these, although memorization is difficult at certain ages other than childhood. So hopefully that should be okay. So markers of femininity, and after that, so markers of femininity, and after that we have the feminine nouns which are based on as we heard them, called muannas sama'i. Muannas sama'i. Muannas sama'i. And our scholars has made groups in muannas sama'i as well. For example, they have said names given to different kind of winds, wind or air. So they are all considered to be feminine. For example, rihun. Let's write with another color. Rihun, rih. Sarsaron, this is the kind of wind which is really freezing cold. Then we have badun, a word which is commonly used in Urdu, especially in Urdu poetry. Bad, samoom. So this is very warm air. Scalding warm. So that's one group. in muannas sama'i. The second group is names of liquor. And there are a few words which has been used in Quran, such as khamr, khamrun, khartumun, khartum. Another word is tila, with hamza at the end. So tila'un. So two categories. Let me go down a bit. The third one, names of fire. Names given to fire or names of fire. And we are familiar with quite a few of them. Narun, nar. We are very familiar with Jahannamu, Jahim. Another name is Sa'ir. And yet another one is Sakaru. So if you focus on these names, this is Gharu Munsarif and this is also Gharu Munsarif. Remember our first lecture. So these are Munsarif. Those which end in tanween, they are munsarif and they are 85% of the nouns. Those which end with single dhamma, they are ghairu munsarif and they are about 15% of the nouns. So that is the third category. The fourth category is very easy. That's body parts which are in pairs. In pairs. For example, we will say yadun, hands, hand. One hand is yadun. And we can say uzunun, ears. There are two. Ainun, eye. This is also used for fountain, this word. Rijlun, legs, leg. So body parts which are in pairs, they're all feminine. Unfun, nose, that's masculine because that's not pair. And then there is a miscellaneous group. I'll have to wipe this off. So the fifth group is miscellaneous nouns. In this group, they have given certain, for example, you look up, we see sama'un, sky, and we are on earth, ardhan, In the sky we have sun, shams, shamsun. On earth we have people, nafsun, individual or soul, nafsun. Okay, and when there are people on earth, what they do? They fight, harbun, harbun. And when they do that, their houses are damaged, darun, house. There's another word for house, baitun, that masculine, darun is feminine. In fight they can use sticks, asa, that's feminine. Then other words, the ka'sun, cup, ro'ya, dream, sabil, sabilun, path, any path, small path, and bi'run, well. So this is the miscellaneous group. So really they have made it easy for us to remember the words which are possibly going to be feminine in Arabic. And Quran is going to teach us what words are masculine and what words are feminine, especially in the case of sifa, when we see a word and then we see sifa with it, and we will see where the sifa is muzakkar and where the sifa is muannas. I hope this was all helpful. See you next time. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha